Agriculture is core to what makes Nebraska unique. As farmers and ranchers show, there's no place like Nebraska. We wrap up Ag Week with a look at how corn farmers are becoming more sustainable. Plus, ethanol supporters hope to expand consumer choice. They just need the legislature to give their bill a chance. Later, a middle school student uses her FFA experience to start her own business. And our Ag Outlook report. We hear what some believe we can expect for corn and bean acres this year. It's time to grow. Ag Week comes to a close in Nebraska, where agriculture is much more than our #1 industry. It's the heart and soul of who we are. We start tonight with a few facts about agriculture. The state has 45,000 farmers and ranchers, and even if you don't farm, your job likely depends on it. Officially, 1 in 4 jobs is related to agriculture. Our state ranks first in the nation in cash receipts for egg products, and the 3rd congressional district is tops in all the land. For beef, Nebraska is #1 in commercial cattle slaughter, #1 in all cattle on feed, tied with Texas, and #2 in all cattle and calves, beef exports, and commercial red meat production. Our thriving livestock industry is only made better by our abundant and reliable supply of crops. In 2022, Nebraska ranked #4 in the nation for corn production, #5 in grain sorghum production, and #6 in soybean production, and #2 for ethanol. Farmers say they're growing a climate for tomorrow.
What are you doing?
As Jason Lewis tinkers on the farm with his father-in-law, until a few years ago, they got help from a man who farmed into his 90s.
In his lifetime, we went from horses to basically tractors driven from space.
From the tractor to the seed, technology has revolutionized agriculture.
More corn, higher yield, basically with less inputs as we get more precise and more site-specific with things like nutrients and water.
Many areas of Nebraska see high nitrate levels as a result of overuse of fertilizer in years gone by. Lewis farms in an area with requirements on when he can apply fertilizer, plus mandatory soil and water sampling. Lewis says farmers do that and more.
My whole family's here, so we don't want dirty water as much as anybody else. So I think if there are problems, I think any of the farmers around here will be willing to address that. But I feel like we're there, and we're just going to have to deal with some of the sins of the past for a while.
University scientists say they're focused on helping farmers become more efficient.
Nitrates are a growing concern in the state of Nebraska. The less water we put on, the less nitrate movement we'll have from the crop root zone down to our aquifers.
Jason Lewis says sustainability encompasses 3 areas:
people, profit, and planet.
He chairs a sustainability committee for the National Corn Growers. He says the numbers tell the story on going green. Profitability is always a challenge, but it's the 3rd point of becoming socially sustainable farmers are trying to figure out, ensuring they'll have people to buy their product.
That we're including people that maybe don't agree with us, but we go out and we talk to them and we engage with them. And that's, I guess I'm kind of proud that we're looking towards that.
And if farmers can do that, Lewis says rural communities benefit.
From the farmers, the agronomists, implement dealers, economists, everybody that makes the small towns work.
And in central Nebraska, that may be truer than we realize. USDA data shows no region of the country receives more value from agriculture than we do. Now it's time for you to decide how we should farm. We are taking part in the UNL TAPS contest. Teams make management decisions side by side in the same field to see how those practices play out in the real world. And we've got a couple of decisions to make, starting with crop insurance. So that brings us to the return of the Grow poll question on Twitter. First up, we need to select a crop insurance package. We can choose revenue protection with harvest price exclusion, or yield protection, and then what level of coverage, 65, 70, 75, 80, or 85%. Help us decide. Follow NTV's Grow on Twitter to vote, and follow us on Facebook to weigh in. And then stay tuned throughout the growing season to see how things are working out. The teen transgender bill was all the talk in the legislature this past week, and with that passage, the senator leading the filibuster threatens to burn the session to the ground. Now senators worry other legislation, even those with priority designation, may run out of time, and that includes a plan to expand access to E15. Advocates for hot-button issues stake out space in the state capitol, where others hope to change the subject.
You know, I think this legislation is critical.
In Tony Lining's case, a bill requiring most gas stations to sell higher ethanol blends. And while some threaten filibusters against every and any bill, Senator Myron Dorn believes his proposal still has a chance.
But yes, we're still hopeful. Made it my priority bill, so hopefully we can get it out of committee, get it on the floor.
Those who turn Nebraska corn into fuel say the state can do more to support ethanol.
We're the #2 ethanol producer in the country, but unfortunately we're number 45 in terms of blending per gallon with ethanol. This is a way to add value to our agricultural products and then also go ahead and consume a lot of those products right here at home in Nebraska.
Some retailers say they'd have to close stores or make costly investments.
I don't believe, I'm going to say it, a mandate is a way to do it.
Dorn says it's about giving consumers a choice.
More access to E15 across the state of Nebraska.
Not only would ethanol supporters like higher blends required across Nebraska, they'd like to end what Senator Deb Fischer calls regulatory uncertainty and allow E15 year-round nationwide.
It's a no-brainer having E15 year-round instead of having the emergency waivers in the summer. It provides surety for our businesses to put in the infrastructure, and it allows us to have the high-octane, low-carbon fuel that we're producing right here in Nebraska.
Nebraska cattlemen responding to the Biden administration's Waters of the U.S. rule. The organization's president, Steve Hansen, said in a statement, quote, as the Biden administration's WOTUS rule takes full legal effect, cattlemen across Nebraska face the undue burden of having water features on their operations subject to federal regulation. Nebraska Cattlemen supports the efforts of NCBA to fight back against unnecessary federal government overreach impacting Nebraska's beef cattle producers. Nebraska Cattlemen thanks Congressman Mike Flood, Don Bacon, and Adrian Smith for voting to overturn the WOTUS rule in the U.S. House of Representatives and for standing in solidarity with Nebraska's cattle producers. One of the main tension points of the new rule is the redefining of what bodies of water are subject to federal permit regulations and requirements, making farmers and ranchers have to deal with more federal regulations in order to operate. Later, we're going to visit one-on-one with the co-founder of eggmarket.net about this year's acreage estimates. Up next, celebrating young people in agriculture.
This portion of NTV's Grow is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
From student to entrepreneur, a Hershey 8th grader is taking her FFA skills into the marketplace. NTV's Lauren Bentley shows us something good.
And I just kind of stood there frozen because I was so shocked. And then I was like telling my friends around me that I just won a grant and they were all excited for me. So I was it was amazing to win it.
After lots of research and hard work, 8th grader Sarah Munt won a national grant to expand her business, Sarah's Canine Kibbles.
2 people were chosen from each state, and I was one of the people chosen from Nebraska.
With the money, she can expand her business that all started in the classroom.
Within our program, every student must have a supervised agricultural education experience. So with that, students develop all sorts of SAE projects.
I decided to make dog treats for it, and then it kind of all just I sold dog treats throughout the quarter. And then when the quarter got over, my teacher told me that my project was one of the best ones that he's seen. So he thought that I should continue to expand that.
She said the idea came from her passion for animals.
I love dogs and I love helping them and making them happy. And I like making the treats. So I decided that I should do that.
She makes them at home and sells them across the state.
So they're all actually natural ingredients, like human ingredients, like peanut butter and flour. Well, I sell them to anyone in Hershey or North Platte, and I've even sold some in Ord, and then I'm going to be going to Lincoln soon, so I'm selling some there.
Her business has also shown a different way for students to be involved in ag.
A lot of students think that farming is simply cows, plows, and sows, and they don't necessarily think about the other connections to ag that isn't necessarily production agriculture.
And she's taken what she's learned in the classroom to a business she can run year-round. What does that feel as a teacher to be able to see your students succeed like Sarah has?
It makes me feel very proud of them, and very thankful for the profession that I'm in, and to be able to see those experiences and those opportunities happening for students.
Munt says she looks forward to seeing her business grow and encourages other teens with the passion to pursue it, no matter how young you are.
You need to push yourself because it might get hard sometimes, but you need to keep going with it.
Showing you something good. I'm Lauren Bentley.
We are here this week just north of Grand Island, a metropolitan community, but certainly also an agricultural hub. For 21 years, Ag Day has tried to bring rural and urban together as fourth graders see farm animals up close. Many of these kids have parents who build combines or process beef, but they've never been to a farm and don't see the connections of how agriculture touches them, from the food they eat to the jobs their parents do.
They might be at C&H making combines that combines the corn or knocks down the hay that we feed to our cows, and then we have JBS that has the meat processing, and hey, all of those products that are at JBS are used. You know, they make gloves, they make basketballs, things like that.
FFA members brought their animals for kids to see, while groups like the Nebraska Corn Board shared facts about crops. And kids learn about some of the invisible way agriculture touches the products we use daily and likely didn't realize got their start on the farm. Our Grow Weather Outlook is next.
NTV's Grow Weather is sponsored by Acres Equipment, solutions for every field. Acres has what you need to get the job done.
The drought monitor out this week showing no improvement in our part of the country. You have to go east and west to find good news as far as the drought is concerned. Kansas has a great deal of good news, and that is the lack of drought in the northeast corner of the state, stretching into the Salina area. It has shrunk, however, this week. The non-drought area in Kansas, 15.66%. Abnormally dry land area in Kansas is 84.33%. 75%, moderate drought, severe drought, 65.5%, and the extreme drought remains the same as last week at 52.33%, exceptional drought, 7.1%. Nebraska, on the other hand, not much change here, still 0.37% no drought, the southeast corner. A third of 1%, basically. 99.5% abnormally dry, moderate drought, 98.5%, 78.5% severe drought in Nebraska, and the Cornhusker State still seeing 34% extreme drought. The northeast corner, north central, out west in the panhandle, the exceptional drought remains at 5.1% in the northeast portion of Nebraska. The April temperature outlook now out early from the Climate Prediction Center, showing normal temperatures for Nebraska and Kansas, except above normal in the southeast corner of the Sunflower State. Precip, always good news to see normal totals, and we see those normal possibilities for Nebraska and Kansas, as well as a big share of the country. And then the 3-month outlook for April, May, and June. Normal temperatures for all of Nebraska, above normal for most of Kansas. And the moisture for 3 months ahead shows Nebraska and Kansas, for the most part, normal in the estimated precipitation, except the southwest corner of Kansas below normal. We see below normal temps, kind of a cool day ahead of us tomorrow, maybe a wintry mix in the morning. 44 will be our high. We do climb up to 48 Tuesday, near normal on Wednesday, 58. Thunderstorms isolated, just a slight chance on Thursday night. And then Friday, we wrap up March with 49 degrees. Normal highs should be 56, lows 32. The week ahead will average 50 for a high and 29 the low. And I mentioned the thunder or isolated storms on Thursday night. We might squeeze it in before the month is over to make this proverb come true. Thunder in March betokens a fruitful year. That is your Grow Report for this week. Join us again next time when once again it will be time to grow.
It has been great seeing your photos come in through National Agriculture Week, and you can keep them coming. Go to our website, nebraska.tv, and chime in. Strong profitability may lead to more corn acres. We hear what one analyst thinks about that coming up next. Well, it is that time of year. Planters will soon be rolling, and what can we expect for seed going in the ground? Matt's joining us from agmarket.net, and you guys have kind of crunched the numbers ahead of USDA's prospective planting. And what are we looking at in terms of more corn, more beans? What do you think the layout's going to look like this year?
Yeah, we definitely feel like there's going to be more corn than beans. Last year was bean acres were pretty strong for beans. Obviously, corn acres were up there as well, but both were actually less than what people thought they were going to be, especially with really high prices. This year, we feel like actually corn's probably going to win out a little bit. When you have big bean acres, you've got to expect the following year you're going to get big corn acres. So we're at 91.35. Baseline numbers were 91. We kind of feel like it'll be above and beyond that. Crop insurance price at 591, basically the same as last year's 590. And yes, input costs are high, but anyone who raised a crop last year probably has a lot of money in their pocket. I don't think they're too worried about input costs. So
do we expect any adjustments one way or the other on wheat acres then?
Yeah, and so, baseline numbers were pretty strong for wheat. We came in at a shade over 49 million acres of wheat. Last year, when folks were getting closer to fall, and anybody who's got winter wheat aspirations, if you will, was looking at awfully salty prices for wheat to where they could lock in really good income. The big question is going to be, for instance, south and west of you, what kind of, what kind of abandonment might you see? I certainly hope those guys can get healed up a little bit as far as moisture goes. Most of your forecasters are calling for La Nina, to switch to neutral ENSO. They basically have declared La Nina over. And so you've got to hope that that's the case, because that typically is going to be a better environment for those of you in the Western Corn Belt.
I think there's still some profitability out there as we start this year. I think there's some reason for optimism, isn't there?
There is. One thing that I've been trying to tell growers this winter is that 21 and 22 for most producers, especially, again, if you raise a crop, just wildly profitable. And I think a big, question or concern or challenge that we have for 23 is distancing ourselves from 21 and 22 and just saying, hey, you know what, if we can lock in $100 an acre net profit, even though some folks made 250 to 400 the last 2 years, maybe we need to take a look at that pretty strong and say, hey, let's lock in a worst case scenario.
If you can remain flexible, if you can lock in, lock in at 100. That's better than the alternative. It should mean some good returns come fall, so maybe not all bad as we get started on the year.
No, absolutely. That's the name of the game, is locking in profit margins, because there's been a lot of years that we'd have given anything to have $100 an acre net profit. I farm here in Illinois as well, and so I write the checks, and I can complain with the best of them, but I tell you what, we've had a couple of pretty good years, and I think we're all willing to admit that. We just got to make sure that we keep reality in check here.
Well, Matt Bennett, co-founder of agmarket.net, thanks for joining us.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And we continue to celebrate the fact it was 10 years ago this month Grow went on the air, where we try to prove Agriculture Week is every week here in Nebraska. And we'll see you back here again next time as we see how agriculture makes Nebraska grow.
NTV's Grow is brought to you by Aurora Cooperative. Tougher together, Aurora and you.